When you talked about loss of market share, I think it was you, Mr. Paap, when you talk about loss of market share and try to get market share back, I think it's important that people that actually do what you do, as opposed to people who get elected to represent you, actually walk that walk so they can, when they talk the talk, they actually know what the walk is like. How do you capture market share back once you lose it? And the other thing is with the trade imbalance, do we not have a trade imbalance right now? And it certainly didn't start with this administration. It started many, many years ago. How would you turn it around, and what would you do? What would the levers be that you would use to change it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congressman, you know, we are fortunate that we've had 6 decades of trade surpluses in agriculture. We can grow more than we can use. And with those relationships of those other countries, I've been fortunate to be involved not only through the Farm Bureau, but also through our Minnesota Governor's Office on different trade missions, whether it be to South Korea, China, Vietnam, as well as some other countries, Cuba. And trade relationships, or trade is all about relationships, getting to know your customer, making sure that you're a reliable customer, being there. And as we have those discussions, in Minnesota, we like to think of trade negotiations a little bit like a Minnesota potluck dinner. Everybody's kind of expected to bring something to the table. You know, and you really have to have everybody that can come back with some advantages, with some wins and things like that. And the best way to do that is through those relationships. So I guess we would urge anybody and everybody that's listening how important it is that we maintain those relationships, because once we lose that market, it's really tough to get it back. And you think about that as you do business normally. If you don't get the service, you don't get the product you want, and you go to someone else takes good care of you, you really shouldn't have a reason to go back to that original place. And that's our worry. 60% of the soybeans that I planted last May are exported. I'm reliable of that export market. So we're going to continue to hopefully build those relationships to be at that table. But really, Farm Bill is important to all of us in agriculture. But our true safety net in agriculture, quite frankly, is that international trade, that 95% of our customers that don't live in the United States.
So anybody else have any opinions on how you would gain market share or regain market share once you lose it? I mean, is there any disagreement that right now that there is a huge trade imbalance? Now, not in ag, because I know what we're doing in ag, but we do get hit. And whenever we put a tariff on things, then the response right away is to come back where we're doing well, right? So you want to hit them where it hurts, and it's usually in the wallet. So if there's any other perspective on how you would get there, I got to tell you, I've watched the domestic automobile market shift tremendously, where domestics no longer hold the percentage of market share that they used to have. But I got to tell you, I agree with you. Once you lose market, you don't get it back. It's good to talk about getting it back, but once that horse is out of the barn, it's pretty hard to get back in. What could you do right now today? If you were sitting where we're sitting, if you were sitting and had a chance to talk to the administration, what would you tell them is the best way of regaining market share and holding people accountable that are not towing the line the right way? And listen, I appreciate the fact you can go to the WTO and go through all these different things, and we win the battle, but we've already lost the war because that market's gone. So if anybody else, just something you would tell us if you were able to sit with us and talk either to Mr. Ross or to Mr. Lighthizer or to the President.
Very quickly, I would say get the exchange rates right. And this is something that the administration at least gives lip service to, but when other countries manage their exchange rates to get an advantage over us, it makes our manufacturers have a much harder time competing.
Anybody else? Mr. Boney.
Congressman, I would just say, we've talked a lot today about China. We've talked a lot today about Mexico and Canada, and we mentioned a little bit about Japan. Let's work on some more. Let's work on some new trade agreements. I mean, there's opportunities out there. Someone mentioned Japan. Japan is a great market. We need whether we go back and work ourselves back into the TPP or whether we have a bilateral, anything along those lines are things that can help American agriculture. So that's what I would encourage.
I'm just wondering, because when we have the biggest market in the world and everybody in the world wants to compete, they want to come in and have a share of our market, there has to be a way that we can look at what we're doing and how we're helping the people that actually form the market. And that's you all in the ag business, but in other places around our markets now, we're looking at lost market share. So thanks for being here today. I'm sorry we had to step out, but we really appreciate your time to coming here and working with us. Thank you, and I yield back.